Now, let me take you through all the updates coming in on the West Asia war. But before that, a quick look as to one country who has the power in its hands to resolve this West Asia war, and that seems to be India. As the West Asia war intensifies, one name that's increasingly being spoken in global corridors is India, not as a spectator but as a country many believe could help end this war. From Europe, a striking call has come. Finland's President Alexander Stubb says that India should step in and broker a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. He points to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, saying that India has already shown that it can engage with Tehran and keep critical supply lines like LPG moving, even in the middle of this conflict. And it's not just one voice there. Let me also tell you, former Pentagon advisor Douglas McGregor believes that India can act as a crucial intermediary. The UAE's ambassador as well goes a step further, saying that a single call from Prime Minister Modi could calm tensions. He says clearly that all Modi has to do is call the leader of Iran and just ask for peace. That's what he says. It sounds powerful, but also deceptively simple, because this is not a routine conflict. This is a layered war that involves Israel, Iran, United States, missiles, proxy forces, global oil routes in play. The devastation that this is left behind, it's going to be tough. The situation is, of course, only getting intense. Israel now claims that it has already killed Iran's security chief, Ali Larijani, in recent airstrikes. This is a claim that's come in today. He was targeted overnight, and after initial uncertainty, Israel's defense minister says he is dead, confirming this. Iran has not officially confirmed this yet, leaving questions open though. But this is the update on the war. United States, on the other hand, is seeing visible cracks within its own leadership. America's top counterterrorism official, Joe Kent, has resigned. He says that he cannot support Donald Trump on this war with Iran. He basically says that America had no direct threat from Iran, and therefore he will not support this war any further. And he steps down. He alleges that this war is being driven by external forces and pressure, basically blaming Israel and its very influential lobby in the United States, saying they've put pressure on Trump and Trump is acting on that pressure. Well, this leaves a larger question now that's even more complex. Where does India fit in amid all of this? While America and Israel are all going into this war without really consulting any other country, they've gone into this. Should India really be stepping in the first place? India's position is indeed unique here. If you look at India, it has strong ties with Israel. It has deep and long-standing relations with Iran. It has strategic partnership across the Gulf, and a growing closeness with the United States has always been. Very few countries can really speak to all sides, and India can. As Jaishankar has already called for de-escalation, but access is not the same as influence. There is also risk here. Qatar, who is often seen as a neutral mediator, has itself come under attack this time. In today's conflict, neutrality does not really guarantee safety. So if India steps in and fails, the cost could be real. Reputational damage, risks to energy routes, and threats to the Indian diaspora within that region. And then there is United States. No ceasefire can shape here without US involvement. And Donald Trump, will he ever allow India to lead? Or will the US retain control? And that's exactly what Donald Trump is known to do. For India, the stakes are massive. Success could elevate its global standing like never before, but failure could also expose India's limits. And while we're already facing tough times with LPG crisis and a lot more to come, is it right for India to step in? Should India be dragged into this war or stay away? Well, at this point, it is whether India should step in the first place, not whether it can. Even if it can, with the crisis that we see here, we do know that any involvement will come with a price. Let me quickly bring in our guests joining us. We have Major General Sanjay Soy, retired defense and geopolitical expert. We also have Adit Kothari, who's a foreign affairs and geopolitical expert. Thanks both of you. Major General Sanjay Soy, your take on this, as India is seen by many countries, including the envoy for UAE to India, very clearly stating and underlining that all India has to do is step up, make a phone call, mentioning Prime Minister Narendra Modi's name itself. The UAE envoy said all Narendra Modi has to do is make a call to Iran. Finland president says the same, that India stands a good chance to be the real effective mediator in this war, and India should step up. How do you view this?
Thank you so much, Nabila. In fact, very interesting, and it shows that people are showing faith in India. It shows that people feel that India is neutral. It shows that a lot of countries are feeling that India's multi-alignment policy could be successful. Now, coming to this point, should India step in, and how the things could shape up? You have already brought out the way things are going on. The Iran is not backing down. The US is not backing down. The things are going from bad to worse. And with the Ali Lariajani also got killed. And but the Mustafa has said that he is not going to back down, and retaliation will continue. India had made calls recently to all the countries in the Middle East and also to Iran, and we are also in touch with America. Our Prime Minister had visited Israel just before the war started, before the 28th February. He was in Israel. I mean, fact is that the mediation could be if all the parties have trust in you, if all the parties feel that you would be neutral, and which India will be, and India has the potential. Now, will they invite India? Because without invitation, we cannot do it. Second thing, should we do it openly? Should we do like what you said? It risks if the failure is. So, I personally feel at present the best policy would be to encourage the back channel communication, which would be taking place, and that is where India can definitely help, because India is one country where Iran can also share their views point, which could be conveyed to US, and US can share their point of view, and which could be conveyed to Iran. So that back channel diplomacy could be there, and at present other options like when we talk of this was China and Oman. Oman has already come a bit of under attack, and China, US would not like to lift it up, lift its status to a mediator, because China was already trying to gain influence in Middle East. So India remains the best option, I think. But at present, whether openly mediation, both the countries will agree, that is a doubtful. But however, both the countries may agree for back channel or some sort of understanding they can come, and some sort of face saving would be required for both the parties. Nabila.
Adit, would you want to comment on this? And if the world is currently overestimating India's ability on both Israel and Iran, and if India should come in, what would the price we'll have to pay?
So I think I'll concur with Major General Soy. I don't think India should get involved unless invited by both parties, unless both parties are happy for India to be that intermediary. Otherwise, India should basically go with the strategy of not my monkey, not my circus. I'm not going to get involved. My nation interests comes first. That's priority. You know, the 10 million Indians stranded in the GCC countries, our oil and gas demands, you know, we will have to strategically have a calibrated strategy around getting those interests secured, and that should be our prerogative. But however, if unilateral bodies like United Nations or neutral organizations and both the involved countries, sorry, the three involved countries, are happy with India to be involved, then yes, absolutely. You know, we'll have to sometime or the other we'll have to look at the Vishwamitra angle. We'll have to go with Modi ji's signature line that this is not an era of war, this is an era of peace, and we will have to look at it from that prism that war is bad for business in general. I mean, look at what is at stake. You know, where the oil prices have surged. You know, it's going to hit global economies. Global recession is predicted if the war drags on anywhere between 40 to 45 days. So the consequences of the war going on is dire, and dire even on India, because we have to remember that we get roughly about 40 to 50 million dollars, sorry, 40 to 50 billion dollars a year as remittances coming in from the GCC countries. So when the war in the GCC country is basically dismantling and paralyzing the economy there, that will have a net impact on India also at large. So when it does come down to that, India should definitely go on with the opportunity, because it will also give India a chance to project its soft power, also project its adept diplomacy, what India has shown over the last 13 days, with phone call diplomacies with the GCC countries, with Iran, with Israel, with the United States, with Russia. So we've kept our lines open with everybody. We're dealing with everybody, and even so much so, the Israeli ambassador is on record in 2025 to say that avenues for all dialogues remain with India, because they are one of those countries which have which do not look at foreign policy from a binary perspective, but rather than at an individual relationship perspective. So that gives India the upper hand, the leverage, and it also keeps India's chances open in the United Security Council open as well, because that is where India eventually needs to head for. So I think calibrated position, but if the opportunity arises, India should definitely be that Vishwamitra.
Right. Major General, Soy, if your take on India's position here, what leverage does India really have beyond just goodwill and balanced relationship? Is there anything as an asset or tool that India has that it could leverage, or it's just that, just goodwill is our weapon?
Yeah, Nabila, in fact, there are a couple of things. Like if you see Oman mediated, Qatar also has been involved in talks between Hamas and other countries. So if they could do it, India is in a better place to do it. That is one part, and that is point of a goodwill. Okay, both parties trust. As far as other angle is concerned, Iran and India were very good friends. So right from for historically we have been good friends, and India has a lot of interest in Iran, and we have been whether it is Chabahar port where we have invested. We were one of the major buyers of the oil from Iran, and also we were supplying them with pharma, fodder products, and our expertise in other fields. So and in the metals, so a lot of things are there where the both countries can help each other, and Iran will also look forward for these kinds of supplies from India, because they would need this agricultural product, pharma products, and agricultural instruments.
Yeah.
So whether it can come through the Armenia or other countries, that is one part. With US, we have signed a deal. We are looking forward to increase our business to $500 billion, and so in the US also looking forward to India as a strategic partner to counter China's design, and as a strategic partner to have their say in the Pacific region. So definitely India has a potential to do it. Both the countries trust us, and we, if invited, we should go ahead, and we can mediate. But definitely we cannot do it without invitation. Secondly, we can, as said earlier, we can always work on helping them with back channel diplomacy. And
Right.
Navila.
We also have Ambassador Meera Shankar, who's been the ambassador to the United States, giving us a little perspective on the US agreeing for a country like India to mediate. Ms. Meera, your take on US approval here. We're talking about India being the potential mediator of this war that's escalating in its third week. We know Iran has said we're not willing for any ceasefire until the conditions that we've put in place are approved, which won't. It's by design put in place for it to be disapproved. US or Israel are not going to be approving of what Iran has put as part of its peace deal. But can India involve itself? And will a country like the United States or a president like Trump be okay with India taking the lead?
Well, I think that, India can act as a channel, back channel of communication between the different actors if they so want. But an active role in mediation, I don't think we have that much influence certainly not with Iran, which is facing an existential situation and also grappling with leadership assassinations, the latest being that the Israeli claim that Ali Larijani, the head of the National Security Council in Iran, and the head of the Basij militia, Soleimani, have been killed in Israeli military action. So I'm not sure that there would be a great deal of willingness at the moment in the midst of all this churn and turmoil to have active mediation.
So we're well beyond diplomacy now. You're saying this war has worsened.
Yes, I think that we are looking at a situation where all countries will be looking out for themselves. And the US and Israel are not getting the support that they expected from European allies or even from Japan, South Korea, or Australia in Asia. So it's a very difficult situation. The Israelis, of course, say they have active military plans, detailed plans for another 3 weeks of operations and for operations going beyond that. So I think it's going to be a bit difficult at this stage. The Europeans have talked about getting the UN Secretary General involved in trying to work out a limited deal for shipping in the Straits of Hormuz, as was done with grain shipments for Ukraine during the war. While the war was still going on, the UN brokered an agreement under which both Ukrainian grains and goods and Russian grains and goods could be exported through Black Sea ports. So the Europeans are talking about a limited, kind of limited de-escalation, which might allow shipping to pass through the Straits of Hormuz. But even there, as I feel, for the Iranians, this is a major pressure point that they are putting on the international system. And they would be probably loath to give this up unless, there's some guarantee that military action will stop. So it's a very, very difficult situation.
But where do you see this war headed then? The three conditions that Iran has put in place, it's designed to be rejected by US and Israel. And we hear Israel is putting a lot of pressure on the US to finish this off. So I don't know where and to what extent they want damage to be done. What do they mean by finish this off? Completely cripple their military province?
See, the Israelis have again talked about regime change and said what we are doing by way of assassinations will help the people of Iran to, change the government at some stage in the future. So again, they are talking of regime change. I don't think that is likely to happen right now. But at the same time, they are also talking about really damaging Iran's capabilities and leaving it so much weaker that it won't pose a threat in future. So, and this is something apparently which the neighboring Gulf sheikdoms are also now pushing for, that don't stop now, go ahead and damage Iran as much as you can so that it is significantly weaker and doesn't pose a threat to the rest of the Gulf. So right now, I would say it looks as though the war is continuing.
How long?
The possibility of any kind of halt, really, I think President Trump and America are the key to that. Because America may, be in a position where it feels that the domestic political costs of the war are too high and that they want to halt.
I've been reading a lot of reports Ambassador, on how Iran at this point doesn't look like they have much to lose. Right? They are willing to kill themselves, they don't mind sacrificing their own people or themselves. So for them, they want to prolong this war as long as it can, to ensure US is brought to its knees. That the US bleeds, they're already paying through their nose now for oil. So this is precisely the intention, that they want US to spend all their money in this war. They want Donald Trump to lose face with the primaries that's coming soon. They want US to regret this. Right, that's more their intention than anything else. They want the world economy to be impacted only so that they can claim victory to the end, even if they have nothing left.
Well, I think for them it's a question of survival. I don't think that it's a question of winning, because the military asymmetry between the US and Israel on the one hand and Iran on the other is too great. But if they survive, and that is it, they can claim that they have endured and won. So it's a question of survival.
Who is the chief director of the anti-counterterrorism department within Trump's regime, he's resigned. We're posting his picture there. He's resigned, and he says, Iran posed no direct threat to the United States, and therefore I stepped down because this seems like a war out of pressure. Israel has put pressure on Donald Trump, and the powerful lobby of Israel, pushing America into war, which was not ours.
I agree with that assessment, because Iran was talking to America. Negotiations were taking place on the nuclear issue through Oman, which was the mediator. And after the last round of talks, the Omanese foreign minister came out of the meeting beaming and saying that there had been great progress, that Iran had agreed to dismantle its enriched uranium stockpiles and to dilute them to non-weapons grade, B, not to stockpile enriched uranium in future, and to give a commitment that they would not now or into the future seek a nuclear weapon. They were willing to get back to IAEA inspections. I think the one issue which was outstanding was whether Iran should have the right to enrich, which they insisted on, within the thresholds permitted by the IAEA for non-nuclear weapon states under safeguards and inspections. And the US insistence that Iran could not have the right to enrich uranium on their soil. But this was an issue on which further discussions could have taken place. A via media could have been found. Some people were talking about an off-ramp whereby Iran would be allowed to do laboratory scale enrichment for medicinal purposes. So the US could claim we have denied them the right to enrich on their soil, and Iran could claim in principle we are still doing it in our labs. I mean, there were off-ramps which were possible. And in the middle of that progress, the attack took place. So it's a war of choice. Clearly, there was no imminent threat from Iran. Indeed, the signals were that A, Israel had already pacified Iran's proxies, whether it was Hamas or Hezbollah or even the Houthis. So, and they had flipped the regime in Syria. So Iran's strength in this region had been greatly weakened because its proxies had been pacified. And on the other hand, Iran itself, because of sanctions, was really willing to look at, and of course the military pressure through deployments in the Gulf, was being constructive in the nuclear talks when the attack took place. So I would agree with that assessment that it was not an imminent threat, and that, dialogue could have led to a place where both countries could have perhaps resolved the nuclear
all that
issue.
effort that was put into dialogue and discussions, even if Iran had probably come to a middle ground, now they're going to start from square one. there's no way that
Yes,
Iran
they
will now
no,
move
definitely.
forward without actually equipping themselves with a nuclear weapon. There's no way from the looks of it. Even if they had come to a middle
No.
ground with diplomacy, now it's out of question. Major General, you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, firstly, I mean, what Ambassador Mira had said that about the asymmetric war, and you had also brought out, I just wanted to say that if Iran does not lose, they win the war. And if US does not win, then they have lost it. I mean, that is a fact because of asymmetry and it is an essential threat for Iran. And if they are able to avoid it, they are able to just avoid defeat, they have done their job. That is one point. And second thing you have just mentioned about the kind of nuclear enrichment. Nuclear enrichment, as Ambassador Mira had also brought out, that Iran had agreed to reduce the level. And I think, what else do you want? I mean, you can't say that you just cannot do anything and you just take things from us and some sort of total hegemony is there. And I think that is quite a thing. The US and I think Israel had made up their mind that they are going to attack, and because probably they felt that Iran was the head, and while the Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi were the arms, and ultimately having neutralized them to a great extent, now it was the turn of the head to be neutralized so that the threat to Israel is reduced forever. And regime change was one aim because unless the regime is changed, they have not achieved their aim. If the regime remains same, the thought process remains same of debt to America, debt to Israel, then after a couple of years, they will again come back with the missile production and the nuclear enrichment. So unless the regime is changed, uh, which listens to the diktat of US or Israel, things are not going to change. Though I agree that to a great extent they have destroyed their military power, will destroy, continue to destroy, and make sure that their war fighting capability is reduced for a few years. That is one thing which is happening, and the nuclear development program also, because of killing of scientists and damage to the
Major
labs and
General,
all, they will
I
also.
have something to say. You know, when it comes to the perception here, I feel Iran has won this. In this
Yeah, yeah,
perception war,
absolutely,
Iran has won
absolutely.
this. Because who wants a regime change? You have a certain section of Iranian people who want a regime change, not all of Iran. So if
Absolutely.
America, who's America to decide that we want to be the saviors of the world and we will ensure a regime change for you? If they were not posing a direct threat to the United States, and debt to America's slogans have been raised before, I agree, but has intensified now. So even the
Absolutely.
people of
No,
Iran
may I
are
also,
disapproving. Yeah,
Absolutely.
may I
Because if
just mention that, when you say death to America, death to Israel, it sounds much worse in English. It is actually America Murdabad, Murdabad, Israel Murdabad. It's a kind of sloganeering which is done in India all the time. It's not,
oh, you're saying it
when
doesn't literally mean debt to America.
it means literally like down with, down with.
Okay.
So when you translate it into English, literally, it means death to. So it sounds more
so
sinister.
I hear you.
yeah, and the battle of perception, you rightly said, because after death of Ayatollah Khomeini, it's like Shahadat, and whatever little resistance was there, they are not there. And actually, Iran is one sympathy, not from Shias only, from
Correct.
all the people, because everybody was thinking that that Dadagiri of America has to be checked, and probably that's why the Europe is also not supporting USA. The most of the Middle East countries are on the sidelines. They are not really want to support. They don't want to get into the war. And rest of the countries also are not with America. It's just they're trying to force them to come with them. So I think as far as the battle of perception is concerned, Iran is way ahead, and the kind of damages which are shown on the social media, the news channels, which shows that Iran is able to, in spite
Which is
of
why I
such
say
a
a regime change is highly unlikely. So then where is the end to this? Because if America and Israel believe that until unless the regime change happens, we will not stop, we will continue. But it seems like now Iran's regime has got support and sympathy from their own people, not just from their own people, from the world outside as well. People are now sympathizing with Iran because Iran is, perceiving to be a country that wants peace. It says we want peace. That's the approach that they've now taken, ironically, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have come out, and at least they have shown that a whole world feels that they've shown the guts to fight. Nobody thought that they will be able to survive against a superpower for a few days, and they have shown the guts. They have been
So
able
I
to
see that the
retaliate.
Shias and the Sunnis, otherwise stand divided, have all now united, are united at least emotionally, wanting to see Iran win, right? A last and final word, Ambassador and Adit. Ambassador, you first.
Well, I think the only way that this ends is if somebody can, persuade President Trump that you have
So
achieved.
can India be that?
What you said,
Can India be that?
What you set out to, because you can claim that we have destroyed their missile, or we've weakened their missile capabilities, we have destroyed their nuclear program, and so this is it. Now we are calling it a halt. We are calling a halt to the operations. I think that is it, because in Israel, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is all set to continue the war. He has his own internal political compulsions. He has an election coming up. He faces a corruption trial in the Supreme Court. Israeli society, if you're talking about Iranian society, some people being against the regime, in Israel too. I mean,
yes, it's the same scene there.
Huge political polarization for and against the regime. But when there's a conflict, people consolidate. So for Netanyahu, I think he sees this as his path to continue.
Right. Adit, the final word. How long do you foresee this war to continue?
So, I mean, I'm no oracle to predict that, but Polymarket seems to think it's going to go anywhere beyond July to August.
Oh my God.
But having said that, somebody actually oversold this kinetic war to Donald Trump, and they should be held culpable. We don't know whether that's Israel or whether that's the Pahlavis or somebody else, some other stakeholder. And the other problem that
kind of influence on the
very
Trump
mercantile,
regime.
a very narcissist Trump has is that he is not going to listen to his advisors, which is why you're seeing the Mr. Kent willing to resign rather than securing his position, a very prominent position within the security apparatus of the United States.
Yeah. The Pahlavis, I highly doubt have any more influence left, and not the kind to push America into war. Kent says it's the Israel lobby. He's the counter-terrorism chief. He could have intelligence well more than we do. So let's take his word for it and believe that America went with Israel collectively, pressure or not. Well, on one hand, Israel, of course, has its reasons with Iran. But Donald Trump, he wants to be the savior of the world. I think that's from where he comes from. That he wanted to, after a so-called successful stint with Venezuela, what he did there, and the people hailing him, I think he was on that high and just went into this war without much thought. But
maybe the next bulletin you do, Nabila, you should do whether Donald Trump gets the next Nobel Prize or not.
Well, that's
maybe
what I'm saying. With Venezuela, after what he did there, the opposition leader who got the Nobel Prize literally said, "I wish I could hand it to Trump." He probably would have been on that high, right? It's a very credible statement coming from a Nobel Prize winner that I want to give my Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. Look what that does to him and his credibility. He felt larger than life, and he felt that now he wants to save people of Iran, and he went into this in that with that mind space. I don't know. I'm obviously making this very simplistic. I suppose there's a lot more to this.
I think was really to ensure Iranian dominance in the region. Because they have pacified all the other neighbors. The Gulf countries are with Israel because they fear Iran more than they fear Israel. And through the Abraham Accords, most have established relations with Israel. The axis of resistance that Iran had put in place has been weakened, if not demolished. So the question was now that in Israel, people were saying, Iran is the lone standout. This is our opportunity to actually bring about regime change in Iran and ensure Israeli dominance of the region now and into the future. So I think it's that which, that this is the opportunity, and B, this is a possibility, which will ensure strategic dominance through Israel for the US.
All right. Thanks very much.
One thing I wanted to say was, if you permit, is that other thing could be that to clipping the wings of China after Venezuela, then Iran was one of the major supplier of oil to China. And second thing, Iran is also a great supporter of Russia. So with this taking Iran, the Russia and China, they both lose their hold in Middle East, because after Syria having gone, the Russia the Iran was a major friend left in the Middle East from where they could do some sort of control. And China also was trying to invest about 400 billion, excellent relationship with Iran, and they were supplying a lot of defense material and armaments also to Iran, and they were major buyers of Iran. I think 50% oil of Iran was being bought by China.
So that's where the US justification turns to its head now, because Iran is very seamlessly allowing all the oil to China. So China has really not been impacted.
It's not only that. I mean, China is the biggest buyer of oil in the world. So irrespective of whether they have Iran or not, the Gulf countries will look at China because it's the biggest buyer of oil in the world. The US, as it said, takes only 1%. In fact, the US is now exporting oil. So if you're really looking at where the Gulf countries' interests are going to lie, or the oil exporting countries, then it's China. So they are just sitting pretty. They are not doing anything. They are neither supporting Iran very vocally, but they're taking the benefit of the fact that Iran is keeping the Strait of Hormuz open for their ships.
So if anything, it's the US that's bleeding, really.
Russia has benefited through easing of sanctions and through the fact that the focus is no longer so much on Ukraine. So, I wouldn't go this, I wouldn't put so much strategic coherence into the decision which has been taken. I think it's been taken really to ensure Israeli regional dominance in this region. China, Trump is inviting to be part of the coalition of naval ships which keeps the Gulf of Hormuz open. And
we didn't know that America was such thick friends with Israel that it would support them at all cost, willing to give up on billions of dollars, and willing to struggle with their economy, willing for their oil prices to go up, all to support Israel. For what? Why such thick friendship?
Well, I think that basically it's the Jewish lobby, as it's called,
who hold a lot of wealth in America.
Powerful. They are big political funders, so they provide funds to the political parties and candidates. They control a lot of the media, which shapes opinion. They control a lot of the entertainment industry or Hollywood, which also shapes opinion. So whether it is shaping opinion or whether it is direct financial influence on political parties in the United States, they are very powerful.
All right. Thanks very much, both of you. I really appreciate you joining us on that.